Hello, and welcome to the Rock Metal Podcast. I'm your host, John Harris, and today on the Rock Metal Podcast, we have White Stones. They have a new album called Dancing Into Oblivion, which released on August 27th via Nuclear Blast Records. Right now, I'm being joined by Martin to share some more information about this release, as well as what the band has got going on. So, Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you on. I'm digging the tracks. I'm digging what I'm hearing. My first question is a broad stroke question. It's Dancing Into Oblivion. Tell us about this album. What went into crafting this album, or what did you guys intend to create with this album?
Well, it's just an album, really. This album, I started writing the music pretty much the week after we released the first album, Kwarahi. And that was the same week as the lockdown started. So, I mean, I kind of understood that I will be home for a while, so I took advantage of this time to create this album. If we will be in normal times, I will be on tour with Opeth. So that was the reason, because I had so much time off, and then I wanted to make this record because it will be keep my mind busy in a way, keep me sane, and I'm very glad that I took advantage of these weird and bad times to create the album. I mean, I'm happy for that.
Yeah, you mentioned something super important during this time, which is, keeping me busy, keeping me sane. And silly question, Martin, did it work? Did it keep you sane during this crazy time?
Yes, it did. I'm a guy that need to have some projects in mind to be as good as I can, and that was not an exception. For me to having this project in mind during all this year, it was perfect because I was focused on the music all the time. Of course, I was with my family, but otherwise I was focusing on the music, and that's something I enjoy, being busy with music. So it was good for me.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that it was obviously done during lockdown time. Did that change the creative process at all for you?
I guess it did in some way. When you're writing music, it's pretty much emotions you have in your body, and then you put sounds on what you were feeling. So I guess it did in a way. It helped me to create these kind of dark sounds. I like when music have these emotions, dark emotions in a way. So it did help in that sense, yes.
Would you say then that some of the themes then are, dare I say, pandemic related?
It's not about the pandemic at all, but the emotions I had in my body, yes. I mean, I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, nothing was clear. It was a bit terrifying, the news. And all that. If you do music, you can almost feel it in the music, these feelings, these emotions. So yes, I guess it did help me to get inspired, at least, to write the music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the funny thing is, I was just listening again to the tracks before we jumped on the call to refresh myself, and especially New Age of Dark, I think I'm definitely picking up a lot of that chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the heaviest song in the album, and it's the first song. And yes, I think it represents good the feeling of what you will hear on the rest of the album.
Yeah. You mentioned it's the heaviest song, it's the fastest song. Did that just happen? Or is that something that you set out to do?
It just happened, really. When I was writing the songs, I think that was the first song I wrote, actually, New Age of Dark. But I didn't have any idea. The only thing I had in mind when I started writing the music was to have these interludes in between the heavy songs, the more calm interludes, to create some kind of nice dynamic or atmosphere for the listener when you listen from start to end. So that was the only thing I have in mind. And this time I kind of like the idea to make the music a little bit more technical, a little bit more complex, the songwriting compared to the first album. But that was it pretty much. The rest kind of came back in the flow, you know.
Yeah, there's actually going to be, there's a couple of follow-up questions I was going to have there, Martin, that you touched on was, since you started immediately writing after the first album, were there any breadcrumbs? I like to call them breadcrumbs, from the first album, maybe some songs that were kicking around, or some attitudes from that album. But it sounds like New Age of Dark was, you said the first song that was written, you wanted to go more technical and complex. Did New Age of Dark then set a bit of the tone for the record, or did you just let the process be until the end of the writing?
No, I just let the process be to the end because, as I say, I was writing what I like to write in the moment. Really, I didn't plan much, so every song, I guess, is a bit different from each other, but at the same time, I guess you can hear it's the same band. So I think every song is a bit different in a way, but yeah, I think it fits well in the album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something else you mentioned was a dynamic, and a lot of dynamics and atmosphere for the listener. And one of the things I read was that the influences for this album range all the way from John Coltrane to Deicide.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what I listen to, you know. So when people ask me the influences I got for the album, it's pretty much what I've been listening to. That's true. I mean, I listen a lot to jazz, and especially Coltrane this year. I kind of was listening to a lot. But then New Age of Dark, actually, before I started writing the song, I was listening to Deicide, and then I got inspired, and then I started writing the song. It's not that I mean, it's not. It doesn't sound like Deicide, maybe just a little bit, but the influences are there. And the same with the song Chain of Command. I was listening to Coltrane, the song called Gold Coast, and also I got inspired right away. So I took up the guitar, and then I pretty much came up with the theme of the song, at least the skeleton. So yeah, I mean, the influences are there, but it's nothing obvious in the music for sure.
Mm-hmm. What is it about Coltrane that inspires you? Do you have any other jazz classic favorites?
Well, I mean, I love Miles Davis, Weather Report, and Jaco Pastorius. I love a lot of stuff. Jan Johansson from Sweden as well. It's a lot of stuff I like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool beans. I'm just looking up some Coltrane info at the moment, make sure I get it all right. I thought he was a sax player, and that is correctamundos.
Yeah.
Groovy. Okay. Chain of Command. You mentioned that one was Coltrane influenced. I just kind of want to jump on the Coltrane train for a little bit, if that's cool. Mm-hmm. Chain of Command, what was it about Coltrane that influenced this one? Was it like a melodic thing?
Well, I got inspired with the intro. If you heard the intro from Chain of Command, if you know the song Gold Coast from Coltrane, you will recognize some tones there. Mm-hmm. But the rest, I got influenced maybe the emotions I get when I listen to Coltrane, you know, because as I say, it's nothing obvious. I'm not doing jazz. It's completely the opposite, maybe, what I'm doing. So, but I think it's what I get inspired is the emotions, I guess. When I listen to the music, I like to have this, I don't know, I call it like more earthy or melancholic kind of sound sometimes, you know, and that's what I guess influenced me to put in my music.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lyrically, I know musically you mentioned some dark emotions. Lyrically, for the vocals, what sort of themes are going on? Do you know?
Well, this time it was Eloy, the singer, who made all the lyrics. But I don't think I'm the right guy to explain deep what they talking about. But I think it's pretty much like the same as the first album. Is about a bit society, but it's mostly like looking from upside, and then having how society reacts. For example, for this strange period we had the past year and a half, they can talk about that, a little bit.
Yeah, definitely a dance into oblivion it has been, I'll tell you that, Martin.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing you can do is dance into oblivion with this one.
Yeah.
Groovy. Now, something I have noted here is you wrote and recorded all the bass and all the guitars, other than the guitar solos. That would be Joao, correct?
Yes, correct.
How do you approach writing bass and guitar? Do you get into a different mindset for each one?
It's different. When I write in the songs, usually I do it with the guitars, and then I compose the bass when I have pretty much guitars and drums done. So I take the bass and actually to the end. When I record in the studio, is the last thing I do, because the drums might change a little bit from what I done in the demos. So I like to adapt the bass to the drums and some things that might adjust with the guitars as well in the studio. So I leave it to the end. So guitars for me is more to write the songs, to start to write the songs.
Now, when you write on the guitar, is it like a campfire song? Do you do an acoustic thing and then flesh it out from there?
Depends. Sometimes I pick up the acoustic and then I get an idea and then I go to the electric. But usually I start either with a riff or with a drum beat, whatever it is, and then I start playing around with the beat or with that riff, So it depends, really.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned doing the bass to the drums. What are you looking for in general? Do you like just locking in with the kick drum, or what in general as a bass player are you looking to do with the drums?
Well, in a way, yes. Bass and drums, I think, should always be kind of the together, But also, I like to maybe reinforce some melodies sometimes, and play some melodic lines as well in the bass. So it depends, but of course the bass for me is in the kind of independent instrument compared to what you hear in metal. Metal bass usually goes behind the guitars, doing pretty much the same, and I always try to play the role as a bass player, and that means to go with the drums and then respecting the melodies, but playing some melodies as well.
Yeah, because you could treat this more as like a power trio in a way.
Yeah, it is pretty much a power trio. If it is two guitars, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Now, when it comes to the sounds that we're hearing, I mean, it's pretty killer sounds. What went into crafting the guitar tones and the bass tones? Like, what kind of equipment are you using?
For the guitars, for both albums, I use the same guitar. It's a Fender Stratocaster, single coil. That's maybe not the most common thing in death metal, but I really like the tone, and I use just a tiny bit of distortion also, and that's something I had in mind from the beginning as well when it comes to the sound, because I try to set up the sound right away in the studio, and what I play is pretty much what you hear in the album. And I think it gives the music, it's more earthy in a way. It's more, for me, it gives a more dark tone when you use less distortion, and I use this this guitar in particular. And that's something I like. I like to hear the tone. I like to hear the fingers, you know. If you put a lot of distortions, it's a wall of distortion. You pretty much don't hear who's playing.
Right.
So that's something I had in mind in the beginning. And then I use the bass pretty loud in the music, but the sound is pretty fat and distorted as well. So it kind of gives you the heaviness in the music. So yeah, that's the combination I use for both albums.
That's cool. I mean, for anybody listening in right now, any guitar players who think that their Fender Strat can't do it, just go back and listen to this record and know that it's most certainly can do it. I dig that. That's cool.
Cool.
Yeah, sweet. So we chatted about keeping sane during the pandemic. We chatted about harvesting those dark emotions in the body and turning it into a dance into oblivion. We chatted about, listening to Deicide and then picking up that Fender Strat and just going to town. John Coltrane. What else we chat about? We chat a lot about a lot of stuff. Chain of Command is a track that has a video for it. New Age of Dark is a track that has a video for it. And those will be available in today's show notes. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you're listening on Spotify, you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on the website, therockmetalpodcast.ca, you can go ahead and click on the link to check out White Stone's Facebook page, the music videos for Chain of Command, New Age of Dark. And yeah, is there anything that we missed? Anything management wanted us to hit that I missed, Martin?
I think it's been good, man.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the Rock Metal Podcast today, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you so much.